Lindsey Graham from South Carolina.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you. Has anyone been to South Carolina? Come back, spend money. Thank you, Andy, a Carolina graduate, by the way. Go Gamecocks. We got a ways to go in football. Strom Thurmond, anybody heard of him? I took his place. He knew Franklin Pierce. He said he was a good guy. We change senators every 50 years at home where we need to or not. So this is New Hampshire, they tell me. A place where you actually care about politics. This is a place where you get to know the candidate because they'll come talk to you, right? This is the place where America gets to see through your eyes who they may vote for. Don't ever lose this primary, folks. There's one candidate who hasn't spent one night in New Hampshire, and he's leading. Don't reward somebody who parachutes in this state. Don't do that. Now, my job, it ain't Jeb. My job was to run, to introduce Jeb, and I tried to be competitive in this primary, and to the people who helped me in New Hampshire, I will never, ever forget it. I had the best time of my life talking to you about what I believe and what I think the next president needs to do. How many of you believe that the next president needs to be ready to be commander-in-chief on day one? Yeah. I've been in the Air Force 33 years. I retired in June. I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan 36 times. I've seen the enemy up close. I understand this war. To every young person in this room, the outcome does matter to you. I want to give you a future where radical Islam is put in a box and people your age do not have to fear what they're fearing today in the Mideast. I want to win a war that we can't afford to lose. And to the young people in this room, from 18 to 22, it is your peers that are fighting this war. I want somebody that's going to look after them. The most important job of being President of the United States is being Commander-in-Chief, taking care of those who are in harm's way. I am convinced beyond any doubt that Jeb Bush is ready on day one to be a Commander-in-Chief you can be proud of. And to me, that's the most important job. Every voter in New Hampshire has a chance to reset this race. Please take the opportunity to make sure that the person you pick in New Hampshire is worthy of the job. I've had all the glitz and glamour I want. Glitz and glamour doesn't work. Yelling and being crazy is not the answer to glitz and glamour. I'm looking for steady, solid, a temperament consistent with the job, judgment, background, and experience that will lead our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines to victory and bring them home safe. Now, to the young people in this room, Washington is broken. I know, I work there. What's wrong with Washington? Is it we're not loud enough? That we don't insult each other enough? That we work too much together? I would argue that what's wrong with Washington is that we don't have leadership. That we don't have a president that can reach across the aisle and bring us together. The one thing I can tell you about Jeb Bush, that he is a problem solver with a record to prove it. I am dying to have somebody sit in the Oval Office that can bring out the best in both parties, not just the Republican Party. I'm dying to have somebody in the Oval Office who understands who we are as Americans. There's no substitute for our leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe to the bottom of my heart that Jeb Bush not only could win the election as a Republican, that he would be a better American than a Republican. The next President of the United States, Jeb Bush.
Thank you, Lindsey. Thank you, buddy. I'm good. I'm good. I got it. Thank you. Thank you, Lindsey. Thank you for your service to this extraordinary country, to President Card and his beautiful and phenomenal First Lady. It is a joy to be at Franklin Pierce College, University. My mom's name is Barbara Pierce Bush. Not many places where I can brag about her middle name, but I'm going to do it here. Somehow we're connected. And, people talk about being part of the establishment, or you're an outsider. This is all the media kind of puts us all in the so-called narrative in our little typecast roles, like we're on some crazy Broadway play, and we're just supposed to play it out. I'm proud of being Barbara Bush's son. I'm proud of being George H.W. Bush's son. I'm proud of being George W.'s brother. But I know when you run for president, you got to show your heart. You got to tell the story of what your life's about. You have to lay out the plans of how you would go about changing the direction of the country if you feel it's not going the right way. And you have to give people a sense that you can do it. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm excited to be here for the next 7 days to do that here in New Hampshire, a place where people take this seriously, as Lindsay says. 8 years ago, yesterday, Kaluma and I were, my wife now of almost 42 years. In a couple of weeks, we'll be married 42 years. We were watching the Iowa Caucuses play out. And this extraordinary figure, given 45 minutes, as I recall, on national television, gave a victory speech and a surprise victory in the Iowa Caucuses. And he talked about the fact that there were no blue states or red states, there were only the United States of America. And it was soaring eloquence. It was really moving. You may remember it. I kind of, as a conservative Republican, I kind of slapped myself saying, no, I'm not supposed to like this guy. Because he clearly wasn't a conservative, but it was moving his language. And in retrospect, now, 7 years into the Obama presidency, it's pretty clear that while he still is gifted, he's not a leader. And there was nothing in his background that would suggest he was a leader, a community organizer, a backbench state senator, 2 years in the United States Senate, no sponsorship of any bill that he could say, I worked together across the aisle to fix a problem. He's gifted. And he's an extraordinary speaker even today, but he uses his skills to push down the people that disagree with him to make himself look better. That's the way it's done now. And boy, we're in trouble because of it. Last night in Iowa, the three candidates that won, if you think about it from the perspective of how I just outlined the gifted speaker who's the President of the United States, it's kind of similar, isn't it? We have Donald Trump, who is from the outside, and he's gifted beyond belief when he promotes himself. And when he insults others, he pushes people down, whether you're Hispanic or a woman or a veteran or a POW or a disabled person. He's extraordinary about making fun of others to make himself look strong. And the two other candidates that did well, and I commend Ted Cruz for his victory. It was an extraordinary win. He worked really hard. He deserves praise for his victory. But if you look at their records, they're gifted in how they speak. But what about their life experience? Is there something in their past that would suggest they have the capability of making a tough decision? Is there something that you can look back on and say, whether it's their business career or their political career, that they actually did something that might have been against their own ambitions in order to achieve a public good? This is why I love New Hampshire. Because in New Hampshire, you see, you all sort this stuff out in your own quirky, kind of unique way. You challenge people. You challenge them. If they played by the New Hampshire rules, at least, you challenge them. You ask them questions. You test their mettle. You determine whether they have the leadership skills necessary to be President of the United States. And here's the Jeb story. The Jeb story is one where I fell in love when I was 17 years old with Columba Garnica de Gallo in León, Guanajuato, Mexico. Literally love at first sight. Lightning struck. I didn't know what to do. I mean, my whole life was changed. In fact, my life is organized between BC and AC, before Columba and after Columba. After Columba, it was a lot more productive, I can promise you that. She thought I was too tall. I fell in love. But 2 years, I finally convinced her, and we started our life journey. I've lived overseas. I built a business with a partner in Miami, Florida, where we went from 3 employees to the largest full-service commercial real estate company. And I was governor of a state of Florida, a purple state, a swing state, the largest swing state in the country, a dynamic state. You may have, some of the younger people probably have their mothers-in-law that live there. I took care of your mother-in-law. Florida's a dynamic place. And I turned the system upside down in Tallahassee. I was a conservative governor that turned the place upside down on behalf of people. We cut taxes every year totaling $19 billion. We were one of 2 states to go to AAA bond rating. Wow. Could you imagine recovering our AAA bond rating in the federal government? I think it's a worthy objective. They called me Vito Corleone when I was governor of the state of Florida. 2,500 separate line items in the budget. Not to be the big dog on the stage, not to show that I was the strong man, but to simply say that government can't grow faster than our ability to pay for it. Because that's the truth. Government can't grow prosperity. Government doesn't grow income for us. Government is there to provide for the needy. Government's there to keep us safe. But you can't have a government that grows beyond our ability to pay for it. And in Florida, I tested that notion. And when I finished the job after 8 years, we led the nation in job growth, 7 out of 8 years. 1.3 million jobs were created. The state government workforce dropped by 11%, 13,000 fewer workers. We had $9 billion of reserves when I left. And the state was better off because conservative principles applied the right way is what we need. And that's what we need in Washington. Eight straight budget surpluses in Florida leads me to believe we need a balanced budget amendment in Washington, D.C. so that Washington learns to live within our means. 8 straight years of line item veto power makes me believe that the president needs to have Vito Corleone come to Washington, D.C. to use that power to bring discipline to the budget process. 8 straight years with term limits in Washington, by the way. Sorry, Senator. 8 straight years with term limits in Florida led me to believe that the young, dynamic people that came to work side by side with their governor created the most dynamic reforms in education, in our child welfare system, and the programs for the developmentally disabled across the board. This place was turned upside down with reform because we had idealistic conservatives that had a reformer's heart, and we transformed the state. And we need term limits in Washington, D.C. And 8 straight years of career civil service reform. You see the tire mark right here? Can you see it right there? I know you're texting, but can you see it? This one right here is when I went after the teachers union and won, and this one right here is when we went after the public unions and won, where we fired people because of incompetence. And it turned the state upside down. We need that in Washington, D.C. We need to have a career civil service system that is focused on being the servant of the people, not the master. Lifetime guarantees create bad service. But if you pay people based on performance, you can get a far better result. And the place that I would start doing that is the Department of Veterans Affairs. That is a place that is deserving. Look, I don't know. Here's what I promise you. When I'm President of the United States and there's a problem like the Department of Veterans Affairs, I won't blame my predecessor. I won't blame that, the dog ate my homework. I won't excuse this away. I'll run to the challenge. Whether it was my fault or not, I'm president. I hope you want a president that will hold himself personally accountable when there's a problem and strive to fix the mess. And we need to fix the mess in the Department of Veterans Affairs. It is shameful that men and women in uniform serve to keep us safe, and they come home, they can't even get the first assessment to determine whether they have a problem. It is shameful that there were $140 million of bonuses going out to this behemoth department. $140 million for bonuses for performances, including reducing the waiting list without giving veterans care. And veterans died, and only 3 people have been fired. When I'm President of the United States, heads will roll in the Department of Veterans Affairs. We'll change the culture. Two weeks ago, I was here, and a woman with tears in her eyes talked about how her dad, 85-year-old veteran, had a heart condition at 2 o'clock at night and had to travel all the way to Boston. And she was worried whether, and she took him there, of course, but she was worried whether he was going to make it. Why don't we give veterans a card that allows them to go to see their private doctor or a private clinic or the private hospital? Why don't we focus on giving them the power to make decisions about where they should go? If you do that, the department will get a lot better, and we're showing dignity and respect for the people that should be in the front of the line instead of the back. That kind of attitude, that kind of leadership is what we need in Washington, D.C. And the place where we need it more than any place else is, as Lindsay says, as Commander-in-Chief. Here's what I know to be true. This president and those that are vying on the Democratic side believe that America's leadership in the world, America's presence in the world, on a net basis, is not a force for good. Every time there's an argument in the world of Obama about challenging the Iranian agreement or challenging the sequester, somehow the people that take the other side are warmongers or occupiers or in cahoots with the Death to America crowd, as he discussed when people on a principled basis oppose the Iranian agreement. Pushing people down to make himself look better on domestic policy is not healthy, but doing the same on foreign policy is really dangerous. Another commitment to you. As President of the United States, I'm not going to give lofty, long speeches talking trash. I'm not going to call Russia a regional power and allow them to invade another country 30 days later, the Ukraine. I'm not going to say that there should be a reset and then do nothing. I'm not going to talk about ISIS being the JV team and then allowing a caliphate the size of Indiana with 40,000 battle-tested Islamic radical terrorists with hundreds of millions of dollars of resources at their disposal, where 70 attacks inspired by ISIS or directly coordinated by ISIS in 17 countries has occurred inside that caliphate. You don't talk big and then don't back it up. America needs to be engaged in the world. Our friends need to know that we have their back, and our enemies need to fear us. That's how you create peace through strength. And idle chatter, big talk, doesn't make it happen. We need to rebuild the military, eliminate the sequester, which is the worst example of dysfunction in Washington, D.C., rebuild the strength of the Army, the Marines, reform how we go about procuring the weaponry necessary to keep our warfighters safe and to have a technological advantage. And I know how to do that because I've done it as governor of the state of Florida. Trust me, we can do it a lot more efficiently. But defending this country and defending the homeland has to be the first priority. That has to be the first priority. So in August, I gave a speech at the Reagan Library about how to destroy ISIS. Prior to the attacks on Paris, prior to the attacks and the tragedy in San Bernardino. Now, since then, of course, everybody's trying to be stronger than Tarzan. We're gonna carpet bomb ISIS. We're going to see if the sand glows in the dark. Donald Trump has said in a matter of 3 months, we don't have a dog in the fight. Let Assad take out ISIS. Let ISIS take out Assad. Then he got flattered by Putin, and he said, let Putin take care of ISIS. Then it's one other thing. I can't remember. It's been like every week there's a new Trump policy as it relates to this. And then finally, after San Bernardino, he said, we're going to bomb the SH blank blank out of ISIS. That's not a strategy. That's not a serious approach to this. That's just trying to appeal to people's anger and their angst and their insecurity about the safety of our country. A plan would be arm the Kurds with more sophisticated weapons, embed our troops that are already there inside the Iraqi military, regain the footing that we had in the partnership with the Sunni tribal leaders that created a stable, fragile but stable Iraq. Get the lawyers off the war fighters, both in Iraq and in Syria. Create a no-fly zone in Syria and safe zones in Syria so that we can deal in a humanitarian way with refugees, but also build a Sunni-led army trained and embedded with our troops, the special operators in Syria, financed by the Arab world, with one unified force to take out ISIS, which can be done, and to create stability by regime change with Assad's departure. That is the strategy that needs to be done. And you know where I got part of that? I got it from Lindsey Graham. Interestingly, as a candidate for president running for the same job, I was curious enough to seek out his advice because he knows a lot about it. And he was kind enough and patriotic enough to give me advice. That's what we need to restore in Washington, D.C. is to be able to solve problems and to create strategies and then to act on it and have the backbone to carry it out. Whenever the problem existed prior, everybody else on the stage wasn't interested in it to the degree that I believed it was a threat. Whenever we got attacked, all of a sudden now people are talking tough. Which candidate do you want? The one that thinks it through, the one that has a steady hand, the one that knows what he doesn't know but has the capability of seeking out the best possible advice, and the one that can execute on a plan to defend the country. That's my plan, and I hope that you recognize that that is a sign of leadership. The final point I want to make before we open it up is that I just believe that life is a gift from God, that it's divinely inspired, that we all have a role to play in this world, and if everybody reaches their full capacity, nothing will stop the United States. If we protect our freedoms, protect the Bill of Rights, not have an overreaching government, but allow capacity, build capacity for people to achieve their own dreams, the interaction of all of us together, 330 crazy people in pursuit of their own unique dreams, will create more prosperity, more benefits, more creativity, more discoveries, more compassion, more love than any government program ever created. In essence, that's why I believe we're the most extraordinary country in the world. That's why we need to restore that front and center. And I've learned this in a lot of ways because I've had a life. It's been full. It's a life journey where, like most people, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And when you have the 1 step back, you learn, right? You learn from the adversity, and it makes you stronger, it makes you better, it makes you more sensitive to the hopes and dreams of others. In 1994, I lost. I ran for governor and lost. I was one of 2 candidates nationally, I think, as a Republican that lost that year. And it was a little disheartening, I have to admit, but I learned from that. And I decided in 98 if I was going to run, I was going to wander a little bit, and I was going to listen a lot more, and I was going to learn along the way. And it was an extraordinary experience. I went to visit 250 schools. That's hard to do. You start in January, think about it. You don't have summer. I was hitting them about 3 a day. And I have deeply passionate views about reforming education, which I did as governor of the state of Florida. And they're pretty radical. Back then they were very radical. Even today, people consider them pretty provocative. So I went into the lion's den 250 times, in effect, getting challenged along the way, but showing what I believed and growing an appreciation for people trapped in a system that didn't work. I'll never forget, I was at Seminole High School in Central Florida, and this kid was practicing and taking a remedial, was in front of a computer trying to answer questions in preparation for the next day, his last chance to pass a high school graduation test to be able to graduate. Basically, in 1998 in Florida, if you inhaled oxygen, exhaled CO2, had your butt in a seat for 180 days or near that amount, and you passed an 8th grade level test, you'd have a piece of paper that said you were a high school graduate. We had the lowest graduation rate, by the way, in the country. We were 50th. Normally when you're down there at the bottom, Lindsay may know this because South Carolina and Florida used to vie for these things. You say, thank God for Florida. We couldn't even say thank God for South Carolina because we were 50th. We were the worst. And we had these low expectations. And this kid was trying to answer the following question. After being in our system for 12 years, a baseball game starts at 3, it ends at 4:30. How long is the game? He couldn't answer it. Man, I don't know about you, but I saw that and it broke my heart. It angered me and it broke my heart because I knew that young man wasn't going to have a chance to live a life of purpose and meaning. He was going to be stuck, and he'd be dependent upon government in all likelihood, or maybe in the criminal justice system, he would lose hope. That is wrong. And I vowed because I took the time to listen and learn and put a human context around the policies that I believed in, I took this to the people of the state of Florida and said, we need to radically change how we go about this. That's what we need in Washington, D.C. We need a leader that has a heart for people and has plans to fix the mess that exists. In the case of Florida, we created the first statewide voucher program, the second statewide voucher program, the third statewide voucher program. We increased high-performing charter schools fivefold. We reward schools now for showing improvement, and we grade schools A, B, C, D, and F, 100% based on student learning. We ended social promotion in third grade, this insidious idea that a functionally illiterate kid should be passed on even though they can't read the math book or the science book. Somehow there's going to be some miracle that happens that they're actually going to learn. We reward teachers for student learning. We ended tenure for first-time teachers. We turned the system upside down because I learned by going to visit 260 schools that it had to change. And the greatest learning gains in the country have happened in Florida. We need that. I'm not suggesting I'm going to be the chairman of the school board, Washington, D.C. To the contrary. But across the spectrum of government, it's not working right now. And we can yap about it all we want. We can talk about how bad things are, or we can have someone that will work across the aisle, forge consensus to fix the things that are broken so that people can rise up again. That's my mission. And you all in New Hampshire have this extraordinary possibility to change, as you normally do, change the course of primaries. I believe in you, and I'm counting on you. And I hope that you'll support me next Tuesday. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.